You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Linda Tanim, and these are today's headlines. A Russian plane carrying 224 people crashes in Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. No survivors are reported. Agriculture Minister Akram Shayib says Prime Minister Tamam Slam is set to call for a cabinet session to end a nearly 4-month-long waste crisis gripping Lebanon. And Progressive Socialist Party leader Walid Jumblat warns of Russia's isolation, calling for a comprehensive dialogue to resolve the crisis in Syria. A Russian plane carrying more than 200 people has crashed in Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. The Egyptian Civil Aviation Ministry says search and rescue teams found the wreckage of the Russian passenger jet in the Hassana area, south of the city of El Arish, where Egyptian security forces are fighting a local affiliate of the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant Group. The black box, which contains the flight data, was also found at the scene. The plane reportedly took off from Sinai Peninsula's Sharm el-Sheikh, a popular destination for Russian tourists, and disappeared from radar screens 23 minutes after takeoff. Agriculture Minister Akram Shayib says Prime Minister Tamam Slam is set to call for a cabinet session to end a nearly 4-month-long waste crisis gripping the country. His comments came after a meeting with Salam at the Grand Sarai, a day after a source close to the Premier said a cabinet session was possible at the beginning of next week. The meeting was attended by Finance Minister Ali Hassan Khalil and the head of the Council for Development and Reconstruction, Nabil Jisr. It reportedly highlighted the final touches to the trash plan as well as the necessary financial and legal measures to be taken before it is proposed to the cabinet. Salam previously said he would not call for a cabinet session until all parties represented in the government supported the plan. Civil society movements have called on the Lebanese to join a march against the spread of disease from Sad al-Bushri north of Beirut to the so-called Garbage Mountain near the Beirut River. A spokesman on behalf of the movements said the environment is being destroyed because of the politicians' greedy investment policies. He lashed out at the state's proposal to process waste according to a sectarian plan, reiterating that the movements will continue with their struggle. He also vowed that they will back down until their demands are met. It's not clear which movements will take part in Sunday's march, which will begin at 3 p.m. local time. Activists also began collecting trash in Bush Hamoud, north of Beirut, to ensure public safety and reduce the possible spread of epidemics due to the waste crisis. Activists started collecting garbage from under the Karantina Bridge in Bush Hamoud and the Seaside Road, reaching Jaladib. Random trash was collected and put in isolation bags. And similarly, activists with the We Want Accountability campaign have vowed to escalate their action during a sit-in staged outside the Value-Added Tax Office in Beirut's Adliya district. Security forces deployed at the entrance of the building blocked it to prevent protesters who reject the high taxes on the Lebanese from entering the premises. This prompted the activists to shout slogans demanding the gate be reopened to allow employees to enter. Security forces were then encouraged to back down and clear the entrance. Several protests have so far been held outside government buildings and facilities, denouncing corruption and negligence. Progressive Socialist Party leader Walid Jumblat has warned of Russia's isolation, calling for a comprehensive dialogue to resolve the crisis in Syria. The Syrian government refuses to offer any compromise after it instigated the violence that has reached unprecedented levels, Jumblat said in a speech during a 2-day conference for progressive political forces from European and Arab countries on the refugee crisis. The PSP chief criticized Moscow's intervention in the conflict and expressed his belief that the European stance is fundamental to locating solutions for the challenges in Syria. The conference, which is being held at the Bristol Hotel in Hamra, seeks to build a common approach by regional and European countries to the refugee crisis. Major powers meeting in Vienna for talks on Syria have found enough common ground to meet for a new round of talks in 2 weeks, even as the conflict enters a new phase with the deployment of U.S. special forces in the country. U.S. President Barack Obama has ordered the deployment of fewer than 50 commandos to help coalition forces coordinate with local troops. The troop announcement came as diplomats in the Austrian capital representing 17 countries and the EU agreed to launch a broad new peace attempt to gradually end Syria's long civil war, a declaration that avoided any decision on when President Bashar al-Assad might leave. Sergei Lavrov, Russia's foreign minister, said a U.S. decision to deploy special forces in Syria would increase cooperation between the armed forces of both countries.
Our strategy in Syria hasn't changed. The core of our military strategy inside of Syria is to build up the capacity of local forces to take the fight to ISIL on the ground in their own country. There are a variety of ways that the United States and our coalition partners can offer our support to those local forces, whether it's resupplying them or conducting airstrikes in support of their operations on the ground. And the President did make a decision to intensify that support by offering a small number of U.S. Special Operations military personnel to offer them some advice and assistance on the ground as they take the fight to ISIL. So this is an intensification of a strategy that the President announced more than a year ago, and he's discussed it with all of you on many occasions, and I suspect he'll discuss it with all of you again in the future. Well, I certainly wouldn't underestimate the capability and capacity of our U.S. Special Operations forces to be an important force multiplier anywhere around the world they're deployed, and the President does expect that they can have an impact in intensifying our strategy for building the capacity of local forces inside of Syria to taking the fight on the ground to ISIL in their own country.
UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon says talks on the Syrian crisis had unacceptably been taken hostage by the question of President Bashar al-Assad's future. In an interview with Spanish newspapers, referring to Assad, Ban said it is totally unfair and unreasonable that the fate of one person takes the whole political negotiation process hostage. It is unacceptable, he added. He also said the future of Assad must be decided by the Syrian people. And coming up next, a rare and intensifying cyclone called Shapala is expected to hit northern Yemen. More details right next. Welcome back. Thousands of Palestinians in the city of Hebron have gathered for the funerals of 5 teenagers shot dead by Israeli forces in alleged stabbing attacks, including one girl who Amnesty International says was unlawfully killed. 7 bodies were released for burial by Israel to their families on Friday after intervention by Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, as well as international groups. In the Bab al-Zawiya area of the city, around 300 protesters clashed with Israeli troops who used live ammunition, rubber-coated steel bullets, tear gas, and stun grenades. A rare and intensifying cyclone called Shapala has formed in the Arabian Sea and is expected to hit northern Yemen. The UN Weather Agency says the storm could dump more than a year's worth of rainfall on the arid, impoverished country. The storm was probably at its peak today as a Category 4 storm with gusts of 260 kilometers per hour. It is expected to lose strength as it approaches the Arabian Peninsula, forecast to cross northern Yemen and the adjoining Oman coast on Tuesday. Waves are currently at 10 meters in height and may be of this size as the storm comes ashore, likely as a Category 2 cyclone. And moving on to Europe, at least 27 people have been killed and more than 180 were wounded as a fire ripped through a Bucharest nightclub. Romanian authorities said the fire broke out at about 11 p.m. last night at the Collective nightclub, with hundreds of people inside attending a rock concert. Reports say the incident, one of the capital's worst disasters in decades, may have been triggered by a fireworks display inside the club. A large asteroid that scientists only discovered this month will make a relatively close approach to Earth, providing one of the best opportunities in years to gather data about a passing space rock. The asteroid, estimated to be about 400 meters in diameter, will shoot past the planet at 35 kilometers per second at around 5 p.m. GMT this afternoon. Known as 2015 TB-145, it will come within about 480,000 kilometers of Earth, farther away than the Moon, but relatively close by cosmic measures. Astronomers hope to capture radar images and other measurements of the asteroid during the encounter, a rarity for scientists who typically rely on expensive robotic space probes to gather information about such rocky bodies. Aside from pure scientific value, the encounter may help engineers develop better tracking techniques and countermeasures for asteroids that may be on a collision course with Earth. She's dressed up as Nicki Minaj, Sofia Vergara, Amal Clooney, and now a Kardashian. Ellen DeGeneres unveiled her epic costume for season 13 ahead of her Halloween-themed episode on Friday, including a spoof of the trailer for the upcoming Keeping Up with the Kardashians season. Check it out.
Happy Halloween, everybody! Happy Halloween. I bet you're wondering who I am, and obviously if you are wondering who I am, you didn't see the latest ad for Keeping Up with the Kardashians. So in case you missed it, here it is. That's right. I'm the lesser-known Kardashian sister. My name is Carla Kardashian, with a K, because we're known for our double Ks. These are double Ks, too, by the way. Since I'm the younger sister, I get all the hand-me-downs. So these are Kim's shape-ups that I'm wearing. And this is Chloe's old blouse. And the booty is all mine. Thank you. I'm a big part of the family, but for some reason I've always been cut out of the show, and I understand because they only have like 12 reality shows that are on TV 80 hours a week, but you know, they didn't have room for me. Anyway, things are looking up because I recently signed a very lucrative endorsement deal, and I am excited to announce that you're looking at the new face of Funyuns. Funyuns, put some fun in your onions. So I'm glad that people are going to start seeing more of me because I was cut out of this very famous picture. I guess there wasn't enough room, so I guess this is the whole photo right there. And remember, Kim and Kanye got married, and I was there too. You could zoom in and you'd see me. There. And I was there for this one too. Yeah. I got cropped. I was right there, and I don't know what happened. I'm sure it wasn't intentional. So anyway, I love all my sisters. I'm thrilled to be a part of this new season of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and I hope you can keep up with this Kardashian in this dance.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a recap of our top stories. A Russian plane carrying 224 people crashes in Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. No survivors are reported. Agriculture Minister Akram Shayib says Prime Minister Tamam Slam is set to call for a cabinet session to end a nearly 4-month-long waste crisis gripping Lebanon. And Progressive Socialist Party leader Walid Jumblat warns of Russia's isolation, calling for a comprehensive dialogue to resolve the crisis in Syria. Those are your top stories for this Halloween. I'm Minute Tamim, and I thank you all for tuning in this afternoon. Take care.